Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold metal window and stared at the massive alien station floating in the darkness of space. The thing was huge, bigger than any human city he had ever seen. It spun slowly like a dead whale in the black ocean between stars. No lights showed anywhere on its dark surface, and no ships moved around it. The human transport ship had taken 3 weeks to reach this place. Jake and his team of 5 engineers had spent most of that time reading reports about the station. The report said it was called Nexus 7, and it had been built by a race called the Zeltharians. 200 years ago, something had gone wrong and everyone on the station had died. Since then, it had been floating here empty and forgotten. Jake was the chief engineer on this mission. He was 42 years old and had spent 20 years fixing things that other people said could not be fixed. His hair was starting to turn gray and he had scars on his hands from working with hot metal and dangerous machines. The Galactic Council had picked him because they thought humans were good at basic repair work and nothing else. His team was small, but good at what they did. Maria Santos knew everything about engines and how ships moved through space. She was 35 and had worked on more ships than anyone else Jake knew. Ben Clark was the computer expert. He could make dead machines talk and broken systems work again. Amy Foster understood how buildings and stations were built. She could tell if something was about to fall down just by looking at it. Ryan Davis worked with power systems and electrical things. He could bring light to dark places and make dead circuits live again. Lisa Park handled all the communication equipment. She could talk to anyone anywhere in the galaxy if the equipment was working. The alien who had given them this job was called Administrator Crix. He belonged to a race called the Valdrix. Crix had tall, thin body and gray skin that looked like old leather. His eyes were yellow and they never seemed to blink. When he talked to humans, he always sounded like he was talking to children who could not understand important things. Crix had made it very clear that this was not an important job. He had told Jake that humans were new to the galaxy and still learning how things worked. The other alien races had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, while humans had only been doing it for 50 years. Most aliens thought humans were not very smart and could only do simple work. The job was supposed to be easy. Jake and his team were supposed to go to the dead station and look around. They were supposed to write a report about what they found and whether any parts of the station could be sold for scrap metal. After that, the Valdrix would blow up the station and use the space for something else. Crix had smiled when he explained this to Jake. It was not a nice smile. It was the kind of smile that said he thought humans were too stupid to understand what was really happening. He had told Jake that maybe humans could learn something useful by looking at real alien technology, even if they could not understand how it worked. As their transport ship got closer to the station, Jake started to notice things that the reports had not mentioned. The damage to the station looked strange. Most of the holes in the outer hull were too round and too clean. They did not look like the kind of damage that came from explosions or system failures. They looked like the kind of holes that energy weapons made. Jake had seen energy weapon damage before. During the border wars between human colonies, some ships had been attacked by pirates who used alien weapons. The holes in those ships had looked just like the holes he was seeing in Nexus 7. Maria came to stand beside him at the window. She had been looking at the station through a telescope. Her dark eyes were serious and she spoke quietly so the others could not hear. She told Jake that the damage patterns were all wrong. If the station had died because of system failures, the damage should be scattered around randomly. Instead, most of the damage was on one side of the station. It looked like the station had been attacked by ships that all came from the same direction. Ben had been listening to old radio signals from the area. Most of the signals were too old and weak to understand, but he had found something interesting. Right before the station went dark, there had been a lot of military radio traffic in the area. Ships had been talking to each other using military codes. The strange thing was that the codes belonged to Valdrix ships. Amy had been studying the plans of the station that the council had given them. She said the plans were incomplete. Whole sections of the station were missing from the official blueprints. The parts that were missing were in the center of the station where the most important systems would be. Ryan had been looking at power readings from the station. Even though the station was supposed to be completely dead, his instruments were picking up small amounts of energy from deep inside. Something was still working in there even after 200 years. Lisa had been trying to contact other ships in the area to ask about the station. What she found was that no ships ever came to this part of space. Trade routes went around this area like ships were avoiding something. When she asked why the shipping companies just said it was not safe here, but they would not say why, Jake looked at his team and realized they were all thinking the same thing. Something was wrong with this whole situation. The Galactic Council had not sent them here to look for scrap metal. They had sent them here for some other reason that they had not explained. The transport ship captain came over the radio and told them they were ready to dock with the station. Jake told his team to get their equipment ready. They were going to go inside the station and find out what had really happened here. Whatever the truth was, Jake had a feeling that the Galactic Council and the Valdrix did not want them to find it. As they prepared to enter the dead station, Jake felt something cold form in his stomach. It was not fear exactly, but something else. It was the feeling he got when someone was trying to fool him or use him for something he did not understand. Jake Morrison did not like being used, and he especially did not like being lied to. The station waited for them in the darkness, keeping its secrets locked inside its metal walls. The airlock opened with a hiss, and Jake Morrison stepped into the dead station. His boots made hollow sounds on the metal floor, and his flashlight cut through the darkness ahead. The air smelled old and stale, like a room that had been closed for too long. Behind him, his team followed quietly, their lights dancing across the walls. The corridor they entered was wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The walls were smooth and curved in a way that human builders never made them. Strange symbols were carved into the metal, but Jake could not read what they said. Some of the symbols looked like they had been burned into the wall by energy weapons. Amy Foster ran her hands along the walls and checked her instruments. She told Jake that the station was built much stronger than it needed to be. The metal was 3 times thicker than human stations, and the support beams were made from materials that could survive almost anything. This station had been built to last forever, but something had still managed to destroy it. They moved deeper into the station, following the main corridor toward the center. Every few hundred feet, they found more signs that this place had not died peacefully. Blast marks scarred the walls, and some doors had been melted shut from the inside. In several places, they found dark stains on the floor that looked like old blood. Maria Santos stopped at a junction where 4 corridors met. Her instruments were picking up something strange. The air in this area was slightly warmer than the rest of the station, and there was a faint vibration in the floor. She told Jake that somewhere nearby something was still running. Ben Clark set up his computer equipment and plugged into one of the wall panels. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as he tried to wake up the station's information systems. Most of the computers were dead, but he found backup systems that were still working on emergency power. As data started flowing across his screen, his face grew serious. The information he found did not match what the Galactic Council had told them. According to the station's own records, the Zeltharians had not been just living here. They had been working on something big and important. The station had been a research facility, where the smartest Zeltharian scientists were trying to solve the biggest problems in space travel. Jake looked over Ben's shoulder as more information appeared on the screen. The Zeltharians had been close to a breakthrough that would change everything. They had found a way to make ships travel faster than anyone thought possible. Not just a little faster, but hundreds of times faster. With their new technology, a ship could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. Lisa Park had been trying to restore the communication systems. She managed to get one of the emergency transmitters working and started scanning for old messages that might still be stored in the system. What she found made her call Jake over immediately. The last messages sent from the station told a story that was very different from the official reports. 3 days before the station went dark, a Valdrix fleet had arrived and demanded that the Zeltharians hand over all their research. The Zeltharian commander had refused and told the Valdrix ships to leave. The Valdrix had given the Zeltharians 1 day to change their minds. When the deadline passed, the Valdrix ships had opened fire on the station. The messages Lisa found were desperate calls for help, as the station's defenses failed and Valdrix soldiers boarded the station. Ryan Davis had been following the power conduits deeper into the station. He found that most of the main systems were dead, but some backup power was still flowing to a section in the center of the station. When he told Jake about this, they decided to head in that direction. As they moved toward the center of the station, they started finding bodies. The Zeltharians had been tall, thin beings with blue skin and large eyes. They had been dead for 200 years, but the cold, dry air of the station had preserved them well. Most of the bodies showed signs of violence. They had been shot with energy weapons while trying to defend their home. Amy found something that made her angry. In one of the laboratories, she discovered the bodies of Zeltharian children. They had not been soldiers or scientists, just young ones who had been living on the station with their families. The Valdrix had killed them too. Jake felt the cold feeling in his stomach growing stronger. This had not been a battle between military forces. This had been the murder of innocent people who had discovered something valuable. The Valdrix had wanted their technology, and when they could not have it, they had decided that no one else should have it either. Ben managed to access more of the station's central computers. What he found there made everyone stop and stare at his screen. The Zeltharian research had been even more important than they had first thought. The new travel technology was just the beginning. The Zeltharians had been working on ways to generate unlimited clean energy and create materials stronger than anything that existed. Maria discovered that the Zeltharians had hidden copies of their research in secret computer systems throughout the station. Even after the Valdrix had destroyed the main laboratories and killed the scientists, the knowledge was still here waiting for someone to find it. Jake realized that the Galactic Council had sent his team here, knowing exactly what they would find. The Council wanted humans to discover the bodies and the evidence of what the Valdrix had done, but they did not want humans to find the hidden research data. They planned to let Jake's team uncover enough truth to expose the Valdrix crimes while keeping the valuable technology for themselves. Ryan found the source of the power that was still running through the station. Deep in the center of Nexus 7 was a reactor unlike anything humans had ever built. It was still producing energy after 200 years and showed no signs of wearing out. The technology that powered it was far beyond what either humans or Valdrix could build. Lisa managed to restore more of the communication logs. She found records of messages between Valdrix commanders and someone in the Galactic Council. The messages proved that the Council had known about the attack before it happened. They had helped plan it. Jake looked around at his team and saw the same anger in their faces that he felt in his heart. The galaxy had used humans as tools to clean up their dirty work. They had sent Jake's team here expecting them to find some evidence and write a simple report. They had not expected humans to be smart enough or determined enough to find the whole truth. As Jake stood among the bodies of the murdered Zeltharians, he made a decision that would change everything. He was not going to write the report the Council expected. He was not going to help cover up this crime. Instead, he was going to do something that would shock the entire galaxy. Jake Morrison was going to bring this station back to life. Jake Morrison stood in the center of the dead station and looked around at the evidence of murder that surrounded him. His team waited quietly for him to speak. When he finally opened his mouth, his voice was calm, but there was something hard and cold in it that his team had never heard before. He told them they were not going back to write a simple report about scrap metal. They were going to stay on this station and bring it back to life. They were going to restore the Zeltharian technology and make sure the galaxy learned the truth about what had happened here. The Valdrix and the Galactic Council thought humans were too stupid to understand what they had found, but they were about to learn how wrong they were. Jake sent a message back to the Galactic Council through their transport ship. He told them that the station was more damaged than expected and would require months of careful study. He said the human team needed time to safely examine the alien technology without causing more damage. He requested 6 months and asked that no other ships be sent to interfere with their work. The Council replied quickly and agreed to his request. They were happy to keep the humans busy with work that they thought was meaningless. They had no idea that Jake had already found everything they were trying to hide. With the Council's permission to work undisturbed, Jake began planning the resurrection of Nexus 7. He divided his team into pairs and gave each pair a specific job. Maria and Ben would work together to understand and restore the Zeltharian travel technology. Amy and Ryan would repair the station's structure and power systems. Lisa would establish secure communications with contacts throughout the galaxy. The work was harder than anything they had ever attempted. Zeltharian technology was based on principles that human science barely understood. The aliens had found ways to manipulate energy and matter that seemed impossible. But Jake's team had something the original Zeltharian scientists had not had. They had human stubbornness and the willingness to try things that seemed crazy. Amy Foster started by mapping every damaged section of the station. She found that most of the structural damage was cosmetic. The Valdric's weapons had burned holes in the outer hull, but the inner framework was still strong. She began welding new metal plates over the holes and reinforcing the damaged areas with human engineering techniques. The human way of building things was different from the Zeltharian way. Humans built things to be repaired when they broke. They used simple materials that could be replaced and systems that could be understood by anyone with basic training. Amy began adding human-style repair systems to the alien structure. She built maintenance shafts and access panels that would make future repairs easier. Ryan Davis had the hardest job. The station's power systems were completely alien and much more advanced than anything humans had built. The Zeltharian reactor used principles that human physicists were still trying to understand. But Ryan had learned something important during his years of fixing broken machines. Sometimes you did not need to understand how something worked to make it work better. Ryan began tracing every power conduit in the station. He found that the Zeltharians had built their electrical systems like a living thing, with power flowing through branching networks that could adapt to changing needs. The system was beautiful but also fragile. When the Valdric's had damaged key nodes, the whole network had shut down to protect itself. Ryan started rebuilding the power network using human electrical principles. He added backup systems and manual override controls that would let someone restart the power, even if the automatic systems failed. He installed human-style circuit breakers and fuses that would protect the delicate Zeltharian components from power surges. Maria Santos and Ben Clark worked together in the central computer core, trying to understand the Zeltharian travel technology. The mathematics involved were incredibly complex, but they found that human intuition could solve problems that had stumped the alien scientists for years. The Zeltharian approach to faster-than-light travel was based on bending space itself. They had found ways to create bubbles of curved space that could move faster than light, while the ship inside remained stationary. The technology worked, but it required enormous amounts of energy and could only be used by very large ships. Maria realized that humans could improve the design by thinking about it differently. Instead of trying to bend space around a ship, humans could build the space-bending technology into the ship itself. This would make the system smaller and more efficient. A human-sized ship could travel just as fast as a massive Zeltharian station. Ben worked on integrating human computer systems with the Zeltharian technology. He found that human programming languages were more flexible than Zeltharian systems. Human computers were designed to handle unexpected situations and adapt to new problems. When he combined human software with Zeltharian hardware, the result was more powerful than either system alone. Lisa Park had been busy establishing a secret communication network. She reached out to species throughout the galaxy, who had reasons to distrust the Valdric's and the Galactic Council. She found that many alien races had suspicions about Valdric's expansion but had never been able to prove anything. Lisa made contact with surviving Zeltharian communities that had been living in exile since their homeworld was destroyed. She also found other species whose planets had been taken by the Valdric's under suspicious circumstances. Slowly, she built a network of allies who would help spread the truth when the time came. As the weeks passed, the station began to come alive again. Lights flickered on in corridors that had been dark for 2 centuries. Air circulation systems started working and the temperature began to rise. The central reactor hummed with power as Ryan's new electrical systems brought energy to every part of the station. Jake walked through the restored sections and marveled at what his team had accomplished. They had not just repaired the station, they had made it better. Human engineering had solved problems that the Zeltharians had never even known they had. The hybrid human-alien systems were more reliable and more powerful than anything either species had built alone. But Jake knew that their work was far from over. They had restored the station, but they had not yet tested the advanced technology that made it special. The Zeltharian travel system was incredibly powerful, but also incredibly dangerous. If they made a mistake while testing it, they could destroy themselves and the station. Maria and Ben had been running computer simulations of the travel system for weeks. They believed they had solved the energy problems that had limited the original Zeltharian design. Their human improvements should allow the station to travel anywhere in the galaxy instantly and safely. As Jake prepared for the first test of the restored technology, he thought about what they would do after they proved it worked. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were much more capable than anyone had believed. The Valdrix and the Galactic Council had made the mistake of underestimating human determination and human fury. Jake Morrison smiled as he looked out at the stars through the station's restored viewports. Soon those stars would learn what happened when you tried to use humans as tools and thought they were too stupid to fight back. The resurrection of Nexus 7 was just the beginning of something much bigger. The alarm in Jake Morrison's quarters woke him from a deep sleep. He had been dreaming about his childhood on Earth when the sound cut through his mind like a knife. Lisa Park's voice came over the communication system, telling him that ships were approaching the station. Jake rolled out of bed and grabbed his clothes, knowing that their time of peaceful work was about to end. In the command center, Lisa showed him the scanner displays. 3 Valdrix warships were moving toward Nexus 7, and they would arrive in less than 2 hours. The lead ship was much larger than the others, and Jake recognized it from the identification codes. It belonged to Administrator Crix, who had given them this assignment. Jake called his team together and told them what was happening. They all knew this day would come eventually. The Galactic Council had grown suspicious about why the human team was taking so long to complete their simple survey mission. They had sent Crix to find out what was really going on and to clean up any problems. Maria Santos looked at the tactical display and shook her head. The Valdrix ships were armed with enough weapons to destroy a small planet. Nexus 7 was big and strong, but it had never been designed as a warship. If those ships decided to attack, the station would be destroyed in minutes. Ben Clark had been monitoring Valdrix communications, and he brought Jake disturbing news. The Valdrix ships were not just coming to investigate. They had orders to eliminate any evidence of what the human team had discovered. That included eliminating the human team itself. Jake felt the cold fury that had been building inside him for months finally break free. The Valdrix and the Council had sent his team here expecting them to die when they found the truth. They thought humans were disposable tools that could be thrown away when they were no longer useful. Amy Foster reminded Jake that the station's defensive systems had been destroyed 200 years ago. The Valdrix had made sure that Nexus 7 could never fight back when they murdered everyone aboard. But Amy had been working on something during the long nights when she could not sleep. She had been rebuilding those defensive systems using human engineering principles. Ryan Davis had been doing more than just restoring the power grid. He had been installing weapon systems that combined human military technology with Zeltharian energy manipulation. The weapons he had built were unlike anything that existed in the galaxy. They could disable enemy ships without destroying them, leaving the crews alive but helpless. Jake made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of running or hiding, they were going to fight. They were going to show the Valdrix and the entire galaxy what human fury looked like when it was backed by superior technology and righteous anger. Lisa Park sent a message to all the contacts she had made throughout the galaxy. She told them that the moment of truth had arrived and that they should be ready to act when the evidence was revealed. Then she began recording everything that was about to happen so that the galaxy would have proof of what took place. When Administrator Crix's ships arrived at Nexus 7, they found something they had not expected. The dead station was alive and humming with power. Lights blazed from every window and energy shields flickered around the hull. The massive structure had been transformed from a tomb into something that looked dangerous and very much alive. Crix sent a message demanding that Jake and his team surrender immediately. He said they had exceeded their authority and interfered with Galactic Council property. He ordered them to open their docking bays and prepare to be arrested for crimes against galactic law. Jake's response was broadcast on all frequencies so that anyone listening would hear it. He told Crix that Nexus 7 was no longer Council property. Under galactic salvage laws, the station now belonged to the human team that had restored it. He invited Crix to file a complaint with the proper authorities. Crix's voice became angry as he realized that the humans were not going to surrender quietly. He told Jake that he had brought enough firepower to turn the station into scrap metal. He gave the humans 10 minutes to surrender or he would open fire. Jake used those 10 minutes to upload everything his team had discovered to Lisa's communication network. The evidence of the Zeltharian massacre and the proof of Council involvement spread across the galaxy faster than the Valdrix could stop it. By the time Crix's deadline arrived, the truth was already reaching every civilized world. When Crix's ships opened fire on Nexus 7, they discovered that human engineering had changed more than just the station's appearance. The energy shields that Amy had installed absorbed the Valdric's weapons fire and converted it into power for the station's systems. The harder the Valdric ships fired, the stronger the station's defenses became. Ryan's hybrid weapon systems came online and targeted the attacking ships with precision that shocked the Valdric's commanders. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy ships, the weapons disabled their engines and weapon systems, leaving them floating helpless in space. The Valdric's crews were alive, but their ships could not move or fight. Jake opened a communication channel to the disabled Valdric ships. His voice was calm, but there was something in it that made experienced military officers feel afraid. He told them that this was what happened when someone underestimated human capabilities. He said that the Valdrics had made the mistake of thinking that humans were weak and stupid. More Valdric ships began arriving as word of the battle spread. Within hours, there were dozens of warships surrounding Nexus 7, but none of them dared to attack. They had seen what happened to Crix's ships, and they knew that their weapons were useless against the station's defenses. Jake decided it was time to demonstrate the most important thing his team had accomplished. He told Maria to activate the Zeltharian travel system that they had spent months perfecting. The massive station began to glow with energy as the space-bending technology came online. The Valdric ships watched in amazement as Nexus 7 simply vanished from in front of them. One moment the huge station was there, and the next moment there was only empty space. The Valdric's commanders frantically searched their sensors but found nothing. The station had disappeared completely. Jake had not destroyed the station or hidden it somewhere nearby. He had moved it across the galaxy in an instant using technology that the Valdrics could not begin to understand. Nexus 7 reappeared in the heart of the Galactic Council's home system, right next to the Council's main assembly building. The massive alien station materialized, so close to the Council building that its shadow fell across the assembly hall. Every government in the galaxy had representatives on the Council, and they all saw the impossible sight of a station that had traveled instantly across thousands of light years. Jake's voice broadcast from the station to every communication system in the Council complex. He told the assembled representatives that they were looking at the result of human engineering, combined with Zeltharian science. He said that the humans had not only restored the murdered station, but had improved it beyond what its original builders had dreamed possible. The evidence that Lisa had been spreading throughout the galaxy was now being presented directly to the galactic government. Recordings of the Valdric's attack on the station 200 years ago played on screens throughout the Council building. Proof of Council involvement in the cover-up was displayed for all to see. Jake told the Council that humanity was no longer willing to be treated as a minor species that could be used and discarded. The human race had proven that they could not only match alien technology, but improve it. They had shown that human fury combined with human ingenuity was a force that could reshape the galaxy. The political earthquake that followed Jake's demonstration would be felt for generations. But in that moment, as Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Reborn Nexus 7 station, he felt a deep satisfaction. The galaxy had underestimated human determination, and now they were learning the price of that mistake. The shadow of Nexus 7 fell across the Galactic Council Assembly Hall like the hand of justice reaching down from space. Jake Morrison stood on the station's bridge watching through the viewports as chaos erupted in the government complex below. Ships from dozens of worlds were racing toward the Council building as news of what had happened spread across the galaxy. Lisa Park's communication systems were working at full capacity, broadcasting the evidence of Valdric's crimes to every civilized world. The recordings of the Zeltharian massacre played on billions of screens, while proof of Council corruption reached the highest levels of galactic government. There was no way to hide the truth anymore. Jake opened a communication channel that reached every government representative in the Council building. His voice was calm and steady as he spoke, but everyone who heard it understood that the galaxy had changed forever. He told them that the human race had been sent to clean up a crime scene, and had instead uncovered the truth about galactic politics. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Representatives from species that had long suspected Valdric's expansion began demanding investigations. Worlds that had lost territory to suspicious Valdric's claims called for justice. The careful balance of power that had kept the Council stable for centuries began to crumble as the truth spread. Administrator Crix's disabled ships were still floating helplessly near where Nexus 7 had been. The Valdrix commander was desperately trying to contact his government and warn them about what the humans had accomplished, but his communications were being jammed by Lisa's systems and his warnings were not getting through. Ben Clark had been monitoring council communications, and he brought Jake important news. The Valdrix government was ordering their ships throughout the galaxy to attack human colonies in retaliation for Jake's actions. They thought that threatening innocent humans would force Jake to surrender and return the station. Jake's response shocked everyone who heard it. Instead of backing down, he told the council that any attack on human civilians would result in immediate retaliation. He said that Nexus 7 was now capable of appearing anywhere in the galaxy instantly, and that Valdrix military bases would be the first targets if they harmed any humans. To prove his point, Jake ordered Maria to move the station again. Nexus 7 vanished from beside the council building and reappeared next to the largest Valdrix military shipyard. The massive station materialized so close to the shipyard that its energy shields intersected with the shipyard's docking bays. The Valdrix fleet at the shipyard was caught completely off guard. They had been preparing to launch attacks on human colonies when the alien station appeared beside them. Their weapons were useless at such close range, and any attempt to fire would damage their own facilities. Jake broadcast another message to the galaxy telling them that this was what human technology could accomplish when humans were properly motivated. He said that the Valdrix had made the mistake of thinking that humans were too weak to fight, back and too stupid to understand advanced technology. Amy Foster had been working on something special during the months of rebuilding. She had installed manufacturing systems throughout the station that could produce anything the humans needed. The hybrid human-Zeltharian technology could create materials and devices that were beyond anything either species had built alone. Ryan Davis demonstrated the station's new capabilities by building a fleet of small ships in just a few hours. The ships were based on human designs but powered by Zeltharian technology. They were faster and more advanced than anything in the galactic fleet, and they were controlled by artificial intelligence that could think and adapt like a human mind. The new ships spread out from Nexus 7 and began patrolling the space around the Valdrix shipyard. Their message was clear. Any attempt to attack human civilians would be met with immediate and overwhelming force. The Valdrix fleet found itself surrounded and outgunned by technology they could not match. Meanwhile, the political situation in the council was falling apart. Dozens of species were demanding that the Valdrix be expelled from the council and that their territorial claims be reviewed. The evidence that Jake had provided was so overwhelming that even the Valdrix's allies could not defend them. Jake received a message from the council leadership asking him to meet with them to discuss the situation. They offered to negotiate a settlement that would give humans a more important role in galactic government. They promised investigations into Valdrix crimes and justice for the murdered Zeltharians. Jake's response was broadcast throughout the galaxy so that everyone could hear it. He told the council that the time for negotiations was over. The human race had proven that they were not a minor species that could be ignored or manipulated. They had demonstrated technological superiority and the will to use it for justice. He announced that humanity was withdrawing from the Galactic Council and establishing their own confederation of worlds. Any species that wanted to join the Human Confederation would be welcome as equal partners. Any species that wanted to continue the old system of corruption and cover-ups would be left behind. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of species applied to join the Human Confederation within hours. The Zeltharian exile communities were the first to ask for membership, followed by species that had been oppressed by Valdrix expansion. Even some council members began secret negotiations to switch sides. Within a year, the galactic political map had been completely redrawn. The Human Confederation controlled the most advanced technology in the galaxy and offered fair treatment to all member species. The old council system collapsed as more and more worlds joined the humans or formed their own independent alliances. Nexus 7 became the flagship of the new human fleet. The station traveled throughout the galaxy, spreading human technology and human principles of justice and equality. Wherever it appeared, corrupt governments fell and oppressed peoples found hope. Jake Morrison found himself in command of the most powerful force in galactic history. The boy from Earth who had started his career fixing broken machines was now reshaping the political structure of thousands of worlds. But he never forgot the lesson he had learned in the corridors of the dead station. The galaxy had made the mistake of underestimating human determination and human fury. They had thought that humans were weak and stupid and could be used as tools. Instead, they had discovered that humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy when they were fighting for justice. As Jake stood on the bridge of Nexus 7 watching new human ships being built in orbital factories around distant stars, he smiled with satisfaction. The Zeltharians had been avenged and their murderers had been brought to justice. The galaxy had learned to respect human capabilities and human principles. But most importantly, the galaxy had learned never to underestimate an angry human engineer with something to prove. Jake Morrison and his team had taken a dead station and transformed it into the foundation of a new galactic order. They had shown that human ingenuity combined with human determination could accomplish anything. The age of human dominance in galactic affairs had begun, and it had started with 5 engineers who refused to be used as tools by those who thought they were superior. The galaxy would never be the same.